Today I'm going to show you how to make this bracelet that I'm calling Charming Squares. And these are individual components joined together by individual units of right angle weave that are embellished on top. Now this bracelet is 8 inches in length exactly. Now because we're working with components, it's harder to judge how to make the length shorter or longer. Now you could make 3 units. If you want a very small bracelet, you could make 3 units and maybe put 2 of your right angle weaves on either side, your little individual units, or maybe 2 on one side and 1 on the other. If you're going to put 2, I would put it on just one side. I would put it on the side with the bar part of your toggle clasp if you use a toggle. Or you can just eliminate these last 2 units and clasp through the Firepolish bead on either end here. And today I think I'm going to try a shank button bead and see right through the Firepolish and see if I can change the length a little that way. Also get a little bit different look. I will also show you how to do it this way, talk you through it. So let's look at the beads and see what we need for this. For this project today, you are going to need 6mm Firepolish beads, and you're going to need 34 of them. I'm using an Alexandrite AB. And then you'll need some 6mm round pearls. I'm using a glass butter colored pearl. And then you will need, and you will need 30 of those. And you will need a super duo, and you will need 48 super duos. I'm using a half clear, half silver super duo. Then you will need an 11-0 seed bead. I'm using a Toho 11-0 seed bead, and these are nickel, silver, metallic. And then you will need an 8-0 seed bead. The seed bead that I used in this bracelet is a Toho, and it works out better. It has a bigger presence and it lays nicer than the 8-0 check, but I didn't have a color that I liked in Toho, so I'm using the check. It's just keep in mind that if you use Japanese seed bead, it will look a little bit better and it'll hold the shape a little bit better. And but it will work this way too. And then you will need either a toggle clasp or a shank button bead. You will need a beading needle, and you will need 8-pound Fireline. When we start our first unit or our last unit, just one of our units, we will need to have a couple of yards of Fireline on our needle. That will be the unit that we will use to join the other units together with our right angle weave in between. The other ones you can use just a little over an arm length, and because you'll be tying them off, so you won't need as much. So 3 units you will use an arm length, and 1 unit you will use a good span, maybe 2 wingspans, maybe a wingspan and a half, something like that. Okay, so let's zoom in a little bit and get started with this project. Now we're going to start with 4 Firepolish beads and 4 super duos. Each unit has 12 super duos in it. So make yourself a little pile of super duos off to the side, count out 12, and test the holes. Make sure that both holes are open. Some of the fancier finishes especially have a closed hole, and then you'll get halfway through your project and not be able to finish because of a closed hole and have to take it apart. So check them in advance. And then we'll start with 4 Firepolish beads, 4 super duos. You're going to start with a Firepolish and end with a super duo on your needle, and this is what you will have. Let's get a little closer. Now slide down to the end of your thread. You don't have to leave a long tail, enough to tie a couple knots. So just tie a knot into the thread, just like this, making sure that your knot goes down between 2 beads and doesn't slide over the top of a bead. Tie it a couple of times. get good and secure, because we will be cutting off this thread, this tail thread, so you don't want your unit to fall apart. Now, just in case, we're going to go all the way around the unit again too, just to secure it and make sure that we don't have any issues with it falling apart. So we're just going to sew all the way around, maintaining the use of the bottom holes of the super duos. Get to the area where your knot is and go past it a segment. So go into the Firepolish and then go into the super duo here and exit the super duo, just like this. Now we are going to start by embellishing the top of this little unit here, putting our little pearl embellishment on top. So we're going to start that process by picking up 3 11-0s, an 8-0, and 3 11-0s. And we are exiting the bottom of this super duo. We're going to go into the bottom of this super duo right here, the bottom hole, just like this, and pull. Turn your unit and do the same thing again. 2 or 3 11-0s, an 8-0, and 3 11-0s. Like this. From this bottom hole, we're going to go into this bottom hole of the next super duo and pull it tight. Move your tail out of the way and do it again. Pick up 3 11-0 seed beads, an 8-0, and 3 11-0 seed beads. Then we are going to move into the bottom of the next super duo. Turn the work and do it one more time. 3 11-0s, an 8-0, and 3 11-0s. Like this. Go from the bottom of this super duo to the bottom of this super duo. And when you do this, you're going to want to come through the hole of the super duo and all 3 of these little 11-0 seed beads, just like this, and pull. And then you're going to go through the 8-0. We're going to travel over to this 8-0 and exit, just to make sure that our work doesn't pull apart in our next step here. So just travel through all the beads on the outside that you just added, and then through the bottom hole of the super duo, and then through the next 3 little 11-0 seed beads, and then up through the super duo, or not the super duo, I'm sorry, the 8-0 seed bead. And this is what you have so far, just a little square. So we are going to start putting our pearl on now. So we are going to pick up an 11-0, a pearl, and an 11-0. And we are going to go down. See, we're coming out of this 8-0 seed bead. We're going to go into the one on the next corner and pick it up. Just the 8-0, no 11-0s involved. So now you have your pearl and your 2 11-0s kind of between these 2 8-0s here. It's going to kind of bend like that down. Now we're going to move to the next corner, so just turn your work, move to the next corner and pick up the 8-0 seed bead on that corner and pull. This will bend that corner in also. Pick up an 11-0 seed bead and then come through the center of the pearl. Turn your work. Pick up an 11-0 seed bead. Pick up the last corner we still have extended out. Just the 8-0 seed bead. Got a little tangle there. And pull it in. Okay, so this is what we have. Now, hopefully that's not blurry. Now, we have to go over into this 8-0 seed bead and this 11-0 and back through the purl to pull this side together. So just come through the purl and pull as tight as you can to get everything nice and neat, like this. Now this little 11-0 is falling down, so we want to pick it up and then go also, this is right over here, we're coming out of the purl here, we pick up this 11-0 and this 8-0 right above it and pull. And now we have our little centerpiece, just like this. Now, like I said, with toe hose, they're going to lay together a little bit nicer. They're not going to look quite as thready up here, and they're going to match up nicer in size and everything. But I have a check, so there you have it. And we're going to go down through these 3 seed beads right beneath where our thread is coming out of our 8-0. And we're going to pull. Now we are going to go through the bottom hole of the super duo right here. And then we are going to hop up into the top hole of the super duo. Now we are going to pick up an 11-0. We're going to start creating our square on the outside now. So we're going to pick up an 11-0. A super duo. Oop, I want to use my super duos I pulled aside here. An 11-0, a super duo, a purl, a super duo, and an 11-0. So this is what you have on your needle: a purl, or 11-0, a super duo, a purl, a super duo, and 11-0. Now we're coming out of this super duo here. We're going to go into the next one and pull. Turn your work and do the exact same thing. Pick up an 11-0, a super duo, a purl, a super duo, and an 11-0. This. And then you're coming out of this super duo here. You're going to come into the next super duo in line and pull. These are going to be a little loose. We'll sew back around to tighten them up, so don't worry too much about that right now. Pick up another of the series of beads we've been using: 11-0, super duo, purl, super duo. Keep picking up my wrong super duos. Okay, 11-0, super duo, purl, super duo, and 11-0. And then go down into the next super duo. And again, we are going to pick up an 11-0, a super duo, a purl, a super duo, and an 11-0. And we are going to go into this last super duo and into the little series of beads next to it. So we're going to go through the 11-0 and the super duo next to it. So we're just coming through the first set of beads we added, all of them. Make sure your needle doesn't pass past one. You want your thread to go through all of them. And then we're just going to sew completely around all the beads we just put on here to secure them, because they're really loose, and we want to make sure that they're not going to make our unit sloppy. So we're just going to go all the way around the entire unit we're creating here, making sure not to miss any beads. Once you get through to the last one, go through the first one again until you come to the next super duo. Okay, so we're coming out of the Super Duo here. We've sewn all the way around plus a unit. Tighten everything up as much as you can. It won't get really tight, but get it as tight as you can. And then go through, we're right here, we're going to go through this little 11-0 and the Super Duo in the bottom hole. Pull everything tight. Then go through the purl in the next Super Duo. Pull everything tight. Now, we're going to hop up into, we're coming out of this little Super Duo in the bottom. We're going to hop up into the top hole. And we are going to pick up, now, we're going to pick up 3 11-0s, an 8-0, and 3 11-0s. And then we're going to go from this Super Duo in the top hole to this Super Duo in the top hole and pull our beads over the top of the purl, like this. And then we're coming out of this Super Duo on the top. Now we will pick up a 6mm Firepolish bead and we will go through the next Super Duo and pull it tight. This is where things will start to tighten up a little bit for you. Then pick up 3 11-0 seed beads. Oops, they're flying. An 8-0 and 3 11-0 seed beads. Go from this Super Duo to this Super Duo, pulling the beads over the top of the purl, like this. And again, if you're using a more a Japanese seed bead, a round Japanese seed bead, it is a little bit more square, so it will make your corners a little more square also. Then we're coming out of this Super Duo, we're going to pick up a Firepolish bead. And we're going to go from this Super Duo hole, top hole, to this Super Duo top hole, just like that. Turn our work, we're back to a corner, so we're going to create another corner by picking up our series of 3 11-0s, an 8-0, and 3 11-0s. And we're going to just go from this top hole to this top hole in the Super Duos. And then we are going to pick up a Firepolish bead and go from top hole to top hole. And again, we need to create a corner. So let's pick up 3 11-0 seed beads, an 8-0, and 3 11-0 seed beads. And then go from the top to the top of the Super Duos. And now we need a Firepolish to close off the side of our square. So we're going to go from top hole to top hole and through the 3 11-0s. Okay, so now we have a complete unit. So what we're going to do, or a complete component. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to sew through, and I'm going to tie this one off. Now if you're doing your long thread unit, as I explained in the beginning, you can tie it off, sew through and tie it off, but leave your thread on. Don't cut your thread off. On this one, I am just going to sew through the beads the best I can here. It's best on your outside unit here, before you do anything else, before you try to tie it off or anything, to sew all the way around the entire unit again to give it some strength and some form. So I'm just going to sew all the way around my entire component, giving it as much strength as possible. Once I get to the end, after I've sewed through, I'll just sew down through a super duo into a purl and tie a knot and then sew through a few more. So go ahead and do that. If you are doing the unit with your long thread, just sew through the outside and leave it coming out of sew through the outside completely and leave it coming out like a corner like this, or through a Firepolish bead. Don't worry about, you can put a knot in if you like, but don't worry about tying it off completely. Just leave your thread long and then put your needle on another piece of thread and make another unit. And we will do this, we will make 4 of these components and then we will be back. Okay, so I'm back and I have my 4 little components. Now, so grab the one that you left the long thread on and sew around until you're coming out of one of the Firepolish beads. You want to decide whether you want your units to lie with your little 8/0s up and down or sideways like this. And I want mine sideways. So I'm going to come out of this Firepolish bead here. If I wanted to go this way, I'd come out of one of these. So I'm going to come out this way. And then we're going to discuss a couple of ways to put the clasp on, because we're on the last end, and instead of having to sew back through our entire piece of work or tie on somewhere, we're going to get ready for our clasp. Now, if we're going to use a toggle like we did here, and you want to add this unit like on this piece, then you would pick up a purl, a Firepolish bead and a purl onto your needle. You're coming out of the Firepolish, go into the opposite side of the Firepolish. And then, I'm not going to sew all the way around it, but you would sew all the way around your unit and secure it. I'm not going to do the embellishments right now because we will do that over here and I'll show you how to do that. At this point, we'd sew all the way around, we'd put our embellishment on, and then we'd make sure we were coming out of the Firepolish bead here. And then we would pick up, to put on our toggle, we'd pick up 3 11/0 seed beads and an 8/0. And then we'd go through our toggle here. Let's get you a little closer so you can see what I'm doing. I'll drop all these down and go through the toggle. And then we would come through the 8/0 seed bead, just the 8/0, and pull everything tight like this. Arrange it nice and neat. And then we would pick up 3 more 11/0 seed beads and come through the opposite side of the Firepolish bead. And then you'd sew around this by coming up through the 3, going up through the 8/0, going around the clasp, go back down the 8/0 and through the 3 on this side, and just keep going around probably about 6 times if you can get that much thread through. As many times as possible to secure it. And then you'd sew back through your unit and continue. But that's not what I'm going to do with my piece today. I'm going to try something else. And you can do this exact same thing if you decide you don't want to add the 2 end extensions here. If you don't want to add this one because you want it to be shorter, you can do the exact same thing out of the last Firepolish bead here instead of adding this unit. You can just put your 3 11/0s, your 8/0, and your clasp and so on the other side and sew through that way. That will also reduce your length a little bit. If you want a longer bracelet, do it this way. And if you want it longer than 8 inches, then you could probably use a bigger clasp or even add a few more seed beads. Or you could use a wire protector, a jump ring also. You could go up through your 8/0, put on a wire protector, sew through it, and do exactly the same thing, and then add a jump ring and a clasp. That will work too. I'm going to take this apart and then I'm going to show you how to do it. So I've chosen a little bit different button than the one I had in the beginning because it has a little smaller shank. The other one had such a huge shank. I don't think I'm going to gain anything trying to shorten my length by using it. So this is the one I'm going to use. I'm coming out of my Firepolish bead here and I am going to pick up 2 11/0s and 2 8/0s. And then I'm going to go through the shank of my button, like this. And then I'm going to pick up 2 more 8/0s and 2 11/0s. And I'm going to come back through the opposite side of my fire polish bead like that. And just pull it tight. And this is what you should have. Now I'm just going to sew back through all of these beads at least 3 or 4 times, as many times as I can, and then we will be back. So I've sewn through several times, tightened it as much as I could, and this is how it will lay, like this. I'm just going to open it up now. I'm coming out of the fire polish bead because I've sewn through several times, and now I am just going to sew up through the super duo here, and I'm going to sew all the way around my outside beads, the frame of this entire thing, till I get to this fire polish bead on the other side so I can start my extensions. It'll take just a minute to manipulate your needle through all of the little beads. Just make sure you don't miss any so that your thread ends up on the outside of your beads, because that's not good. That's yucky ugly. We don't want that. Plus, it'll pull your beads all weird, so just make sure that you get through all of the beads as you do this. And work your way down until you can come through the fire polish bead, just like this. And there I am, coming out of the fire polish bead. Now I want to connect my 2 units together, so I am going to pick up a pearl. I'm coming out of the fire polish bead. I'm going to go down into the next fire polish bead with my pearl on my thread and pull it tight. And then I'm going to pick up another pearl. Oops, maybe, if I don't throw it across the room. And then I'm going to go up through the fire polish bead on the unit where I started and pull. And we'll pull them together like this. And now we'll sew around them. And if you want to sew around them a couple of times, that's fine too, because this is a connection and you want to make sure it's strong. If I can get enough tension just doing once, and to save time, I will just do it once. But we'll see here. Okay. So this is, normally I would go ahead and sew around this again, but I'm going to try to save a little time. After you come through the pearl, pick up 2 11/0 seed beads, an 8/0, and 2 11/0 seed beads. And then come back through the opposite side of the pearl that you're exiting and pull your thread through. Just like that. As soon as you've got that done, then you'll slide down the fire polish bead. And you'll do the same thing, 2 11/0 seed beads and an 8/0 and 2 11/0s. Then you will come back through the opposite side of the fire polish bead that you're exiting and pull a loop around. And then turn your work and go through your pearl. It's easier if you're holding it in your hand, but you wouldn't be able to see it if I was holding it in my hand. So 2 11/0 seed beads, an 8/0, 2 11/0 seed beads. And then we are going to come back through the opposite side of the pearl and pull. And now we have this funky little thing here. We're going to join it together by the seed beads, or the 8/0 seed beads. So I'm going to go up through, I'm coming out of the pearl here. I am going to go up through the 2 seed beads and the 8/0 and exit and pull. Now, make sure everything's tight before you do that. Now, I'm going to join the 8 together just by sewing through. I'm coming out of this 8 here. I'm going to go into this 8 and pull it through. Turn my work. Go into the next 8, turn my work, and then go into the next 8, and then back through the first 8, and just pull them tight together. Now I'm going to sew through this again to secure it and set the thread and make them draw together nicely. Once I'm all the way around, I'm going to go into the next 11 or the 8 on top here, and then I am going to sew down into the 2 little 11 seed beads here. So just put your needle through the 2 11 right by where you're exiting your 8. It's right here, and come through them. Okay, so right underneath here, right underneath this little 11 you are going to, it's probably going to be easier to go up into this little fire polish bead underneath. So we'll just sew into the fire polish bead right under that 11 and pull tight. And then we're going to sew up. I hope I didn't confuse you by turning my work all around like that. But now we're going to sew up into our frame again and over to our next connection and do the exact same thing with our next component. And we're going to do this all the way to get all 4 of them. So you'll sew around the outside frame. You'll come out of the fire polish bead. You'll add your purl, come through the fire polish, add your purl, come through the fire polish, tighten them, secure them by sewing through them once or twice, put your embellishment on top, just like we did here, and then come down through the little 11 on your embellishment, come back through the frame of your work and do the same thing here. And then sew through the frame of your work and come out of this fire polish bead, and we will be back. Okay, so I'm back. Now, just going directly into this fire polish bead and planning on going directly out of this fire polish bead for my clasping has shortened this tremendously, too much actually, for my wrist. And see, I have quite a bit of room left there. I really only want about an inch, half an inch. There's just a little too much there. So what I'm going to do, for a very small wrist, this will work perfectly once you get your loop on. That'll give a little bit more length too. But I am going to make mine a little bit longer by adding 1 unit of right angle weave at the end here, just like I did when I was showing you how to put on the toggle. So I am just going to put on a purl, a fire polish bead, and a purl. I'm coming out of the fire polish bead here and adding the rest of my unit of 4, and then I'm just going to sew around this and secure it and embellish it, and then I'm going to exit my fire polish bead and we will make a loop to go around the button. So as soon as I get this, I'll embellish just like you had been doing the units here, exact same embellishment. I will be right back. So I have embellished the last unit that I added to extend my bracelet a little bit here. I am coming out of this little 11 seed bead right here from my embellishment. I'm going to go down into my fire polish bead. And then I'm going to begin picking up a series of 11 seed beads to make a loop to go around my button. I'm going to pick up an 8 first. just because I think I should. Let me see how that fits down next to my fire polish. Yep, that'll be fine. So I'm going to pick up an 8/0, and then I'm just going to pick up a whole bunch of 11/0s until I think I have enough to loop around my button. I think I have enough, then I'll pick up another 8/0, and I will slide back through the opposite end of the fire polish. And I'll hold it very tightly as I can, maybe wrap it around my finger, and bring my button around and see if my button will slide through without a lot of problems here. Let's go with some of my tension. Let's see. Yep, that'll work just fine. So now that I know that will fit, let's back off a little bit here. I am going to sew back through my entire unit. I'm coming out of the fire polish bead here, so I'm going to sew down through the pearl, the fire polish bead here, the pearl, up through the fire polish bead and my 8/0, and then I'm going to sew all the way around my 11/0s again, then reinforce in my unit and tie off. Okay, so I sewed through and tied off. I just sewed back through my unit, back into my main body of work, and then tied off. And this is what the bracelet looks like on. This did successfully shorten my bracelet quite a bit, at least an inch. It's almost even just a little bit tight, but not really. So that is a good way to shorten it if you want to make yours a little bit smaller, the way we did this one. And this one, like I said, you just add the 2 end units and then sew on the toggle the way I showed you. Now, either way, on this one, if you want to do a button and make it longer, you could, on this end, add another unit of right angle weave and then sew your button through the fire polish bead on the end of that little unit there. That would also make it a little bit longer. But as you can see, this shortened it quite a bit. It was pretty helpful. So that's the way you'll adjust your length, just messing with your units, messing with the type of clasp you use, and that will work out just fine. I hope you guys enjoyed this project. I'll give you a little close-up here so you can see what they look like. They are kind of three-dimensional. If you want to, you can pop them up like that. See how that rose up? You can pop them up a little bit, or you can kind of squish them down. It doesn't matter. They will stand either way. If you want them popped up, it'll stay popped up for you. But, and kind of three-dimensional. But it's kind of a fun little project, and I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.